coverage is okay, but not stellar yet. There's still holes that we need to fix. Performance degraded, unfortunately. And that's my biggest concern. So if you look at the number of SQL queries, it actually was reduced significantly because we introduced the load multiple pattern and we did some smart path alias caching. However, if you look at the performance, for non-cached pages, sometimes performance degraded by, up to 55%. If caching is enabled, it's only like 12%. So that's a problem. Fortunately, Drupal 7 is going to be more scalable. So although it's slower, it's going to be easier to scale. And this is actually a graph from D.O where we backported some of the patches. They're part of PressFlow as well. Backported some of those patches and applied them to D.O. So we know it's going to scale better, but it's still slower. So this picture is a little bit too dramatic, but we've built this long bridge, right? We've added all of these features, and it's like we're almost on the other side, but not quite. And so, what does that mean? How are we going to handle this situation? So this is sort of a little graph of the development cycle. First there is a development period, which I've summarized, and then there is the code freeze period, which eventually will lead to the Drupal 7 release. So the first thing we're going to do is extend the code freeze by 1 week. So that's called phase 1, called Drupal compares, to allow people to continue to work on Drupal 7 during the conference and at the code sprints and things like that. So what does this mean? It means that everything is still allowed. Any patch can still go in. It ends on Monday morning, so we have Saturday, and for people that want to stay longer, we have Sunday, and then Monday morning, WebCheck or I will effectively take a snapshot of all of the things which are marked RTBC. It doesn't mean it needs to be in before Monday, but if it's marked RTBC, we will review it, and if it looks good, we'll commit it to Drupal 7. So even if we're all busy, it gives us a little bit of time to go home and take the time to properly review patches and then commit them based on whether we actually do think they're ready. So there's no point in marking everything RTBC. All right, so let me, 1 second. All right, so the second phase is what we call code slush. It's in between normal and freeze. And it's time boxed to be 5 weeks. And that's not an easy thing to do, but we decided to time box it nonetheless. What's no longer allowed during this phase is new features or new functionality. What is still allowed during this phase is up to 10 carefully crafted exceptions for new features. And so, WebCheck and I, we spent the last couple of weeks going back and forth compiling this list together, and I'll share it in a minute. What is also still allowed is sort of important API changes for existing features, not for new features, for existing features. And that gives us an opportunity to start upgrading our modules. And as we upgrade our modules, we learn that some things in our APIs aren't quite what they need to be. We still have the opportunity to go and fix them. It's also meant to put a little bit of pressure on upgrading your modules, because you effectively have to upgrade or start upgrading your modules and discover any problems within 6 weeks from today, right? Phase 1 plus phase 2 is 6 weeks. And then what's also allowed, like we always do, usability changes, specifically smaller usability changes, accessibility improvements. We're gonna allow these to still happen. Writing tests, writing documentation, and any kind of performance improvement. That's how we've done it traditionally. And so, October 15, we do an API freeze, including a markup freeze and a schema freeze of the database. So, the exceptions. The first exception that we decided to make was image fields. The second was making fields translatable. There's also some patches for that. The third one was to convert profile module to the field API. We feel with the current state you can add fields to users, but the profile module does the same thing. Sort of broken to have both, right? So we want to clean that up. The other thing we wanted to do is convert taxonomy terms to fields. Overlays, we feel overlays are pretty close. I think they're 90% done. It's just a matter of driving it home. Edit anywhere, adding the edit buttons to blocks and other regions. So there's also a patch for that, and it's also functional, but it needs a little bit more polish. The shortcut bar, which I think is a big important thing to, especially for power users like many of you in this room, to speed up navigation of Drupal 7. Similarly, the dashboard also has the opportunity to, allow you to customize Drupal and to make it work like you want it to work, so that it, it can be fast for you. 9 is the plugin manager, and as 10, I would still like to get some RDF or RDFA in Drupal 7. So that is a list of exceptions. Now remember, these are time-boxed, so they might or might not happen. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but given all of the other features we have, I think it's okay to time-box those. I don't think either of those will break. Not having them will not break the Drupal 7 release. All right, so that's the code slush phase. And then the last phase is sort of the strictly polish phase, which is going to be time-boxed at 4 weeks. It's not allowed these new features, API changes, markup changes, or anything like that. What is still allowed is smaller usability improvements, smaller accessibility improvements, new tests, documentation, and performance improvements. Again, that's how we've done it before and how we'll do it again. So November 15, we freeze the strings, so the translation teams can start translating Drupal, and we'll also freeze the UI, so people can start documenting Drupal in the DDO handbooks and stuff like that. And then effectively, we might or might not do a first alpha release or something like that, depending on what sort of open issues there's still to fix. And the final phase is sort of the, fixing the bugs and especially the release blockers. And that can be anything. So that remains to be seen. So the length until alpha releases are blocked. So we'll release Drupal when it's ready. What's still allowed here is the release blockers, the bug fixes, and testing. I think testing is something which should always be allowed, especially because we want to embrace more test-driven development. And as we fix bugs, ideally they come with tests. So and also during this period, we'll start to do betas and release candidates and stuff like that. So here's a handy overview, which I'll probably share on DDO or somewhere. As a cheat sheet. So that's how we're going to approach Drupal 7, and hopefully, we'll be able to drive it home. It's going to take at least 2 months, according to schedule, to get to the end of the strictly polish phase. But then hopefully, a couple of months after, who knows, we'll be able to release Drupal 7, which hopefully will be early 2010. So. What happens after Drupal 7? So I already talked a little bit about this guy, and we sort of learned how we as a community innovate and how we make progress using this thing called creative destruction. And I think, looking forward, I think that's what will continue to happen. I think Drupal 8 hopefully will be much better as Drupal 7. Anyways, will be a little bit destructive.